Hey everyone, so why do I think Dana Coverstone's dreams are most likely from God? Well, let me explain to you how I approach it. Now, lots of Christians have had dreams about a lot of things, and I've done compilations of dreams, other videos that are compilations of those dreams on my channel, because I do see, not just believe, but I see that God is speaking to a lot of Christians through dreams these days, as prophecy predicted in Joel chapter 2 and later in Acts. I've met many Christians who've had dreams, and all of them are seeing very similar things. But it is, of course, possible for anyone to say they had a dream and they didn't really have it. And it is also very possible for someone to want to get on the bandwagon, right? It's also possible for someone to be really worried about something and then dream about that thing, or be aware that all these other Christians are having dreams, then you dream about the same things because you've been influenced by that. All of that's possible, but how do we empirically analyze something like Dana Coverstone's dreams? And the reason I'm singling him out for some of these videos I do when I interpret his dreams, the reason I do that is because his are unique among all the other dreams that a lot of us have seen. How are they unique? Well, one, when he posted his first one, he was not intending to do a big thing. He just posted, he said, I had a very vivid dream and it was weird, and he put it on Facebook, on his Facebook page. He's a small church pastor from Kentucky. I think it's, not a large congregation, not a large following on Facebook at the time, but it went viral, and within a few weeks, 400 million people had seen it. That gets my attention. Not a televangelist, not someone with a huge following, but a small church pastor who all of a sudden blows up and gets all of this attention. That's actually a sign that God could be in it. Not proof God's in it, but it's a sign. It makes me pay attention. More than all these, because there's lots of dreams that have been posted, but none of them have gone viral that way. So that gets my attention. Second, his are literal, in a sense that you're seeing literal things happen, scenes unfold, but there's also clear biblical symbolism encoded in them as well. Now, in the dream compilation videos I've done on my channel, I only included literal dreams. So there's a whole range of types of dreams that Christians are having. And when I say they're all saying the same things, the same themes, they are. But some are very symbolic. Some they're so symbolic that it's only God is speaking to them through symbols that would only mean something to them. And there's no way for you and I to get the same value out of that and teaching out of that they would personally, because that was really quite a personal dream for them. Then there's, on the other end of the spectrum, there's dreams that are very literal. There's no symbolism at all. They're just seeing something happen that is most likely from the future. Coverstones seem to be in the middle, and the symbols are biblical, very biblical. Okay, so, and there's some very deep teaching in there, some strong spiritual themes, and very practical things we need to know if these are from God, right? So that's why I and a lot of other people have paid attention to them, because we're wondering, is this God speaking to us through this? Well, the first is, how do you know if something's from God? Well, if it conflicts with Scripture, it's not. That's simple. But out of all the ones I've watched so far, I haven't seen anything that conflicts with Scripture. I just see Scripture confirms a lot of the details, what I had only understood about prophecy from Scripture. As I wrote in my book, Revelation Unfolding, I see a lot of confirmation there. But let's back up a little. First question. How do we know Mr. Coverstone's not just making these up to get attention? How do we know he's not just a master crafter of pretending to have had dreams, and he's trying to build a big mega ministry and get attention? How do we know that's not what's going on? Well, number one, when you're investigating something, when you're interviewing somebody, you look at body language, you look at voice, tone, facial expressions. things they say, and you take all of that into account, and you try to assess the sincerity of the person involved. And you also then talk to other people that know them and try to establish their character and whether this is a person who would make these kind of things up or not. So Mr. Coverstone's made a very clear claim. He's not made a claim to be a prophet. He has not made a claim to be a prophet. So evaluating him as a prophet or not is really not valid. He's not making that claim. He's not claiming to speak authoritatively for God. He's not saying, God told me to tell you. He's just reporting his dreams, and he's trying to interpret them. And I think he clearly believes they are from God, but he's being very careful to not try to make them authoritative. He's staying in the inspirational realm, very intentionally. Now, but if you pay attention to his body language, his facial expressions, etc., it is very hard to not believe he's sincere. You can tell the emotional journey that he's been on, where the very first dream he posted, he was clearly just talking to people he thought he knew. He wasn't intending for this to get big, and he's just reporting a dream he had that he thought might be predicting some future events. Then you see him go into a darker period emotionally. He's still reporting more dreams, but he's frustrated. People are attacking him. People have been criticizing him. People are calling him a false prophet and other things. And you can tell he's feeling under spiritual attack. And but he's being faithful. He's continuing. He's not over jubilant. None of the characteristics you would get out of a televangelist, right? And I hope everybody knows what I mean by televangelist. Don't mean a preacher on TV. Mean a certain category of preacher on TV. But in his case, you don't detect that. You detect sincerity. I've also talked with people that know people from his hometown, and they say that he's got a great reputation in the town. Doesn't have a large church, but he's known for humility. He's known for the fruit of the Spirit, and he's not this egomaniac kind of guy that would invent something like this. So nobody can know anybody's heart for sure, but the evidence to me from those two aspects, character and sincerity, tell me he's really having the dreams. He's not making them up. Okay, so in my heart, I've established that he's having the dreams. Now, are these random fabrications of his mind, or are they from God? So how can we evaluate that? Well, we're going to look for internal evidences within the dreams themselves to tell us this. If they were random fabrications of his mind, then the dreams would be random. And dreams he's having on different nights wouldn't tie together necessarily. Okay? That would be very unlikely unless he's obsessed with a certain theme. But in that case, it would be that theme over and over again. For example, if you have a fear of falling, you might have a dream all the time about falling. Okay? But your brain is driving that one theme. And that isn't what we see. When we see the consistency in his dreams, that's not the kind of consistency we see. So let's look at what the consistencies we do see. Now he does report that he has the same very detailed dream for many nights in a row, usually between 3 to 7. 7 is the longest I remember him saying he had a repeated dream over and over again. But when he sees these, but it's basically like he's getting the same dream over and over again until he gets the detail down, and then the dream stops. Then he goes through a period of time where he has no more dreams, and then a new dream will come. So that repeated nature is one indication that these may be from God, because we see that as a precedent in the Bible where God repeated dreams to confirm them. Now, a second element is the symbolism. The symbolism is very consistent with the way God uses natural symbols in the Bible. And that is not something that really is easy for people to fake. How do I know that? Well, I wrote a book called The Gospel According to Nature, and I spent a lot of time praying and studying and looking at creation and trying to understand the symbolic messages and teaching that God was speaking to us through nature, and how he uses those symbols to teach us, and then going to the Bible and seeing that my understandings through that process matched exactly how the Bible had used those symbols. I've spent a lot of years studying that, and I also went through a process where he helped me see. He helped me see how it was used in the Bible. He helped me see how it all meshes together. And there's very few works out there that really, there's a few authors that have done a great job, but very few of them. Most get a few symbols right and then kind of make assumptions on others, or very loose about it. And even when, and this is kind of the evidence to me, is when I hear the dream reported and I hear the symbols and I see full consistency with how God uses these symbols in the Bible. But when Dana finishes the reporting part of his videos and he begins the interpreting part, he gets most of the symbolic interpretation right, but then he obviously is not a master of symbolism the way those of us who have focused on it are. Well, I don't know if I should call myself a master. That's probably not the right term, and I don't mean to say that. I'm just saying that I have put a lot of study into it, and most Christians haven't, and that's okay. That's just not their field of study. But in his case, he gets most of it right, but then he misinterprets slightly a few. And that's evidence to me that he didn't have the full skill level to create these intentional, or his brain wouldn't have done this on its own. Then it must be God, because God is consistent with how he's used them in the Bible. Does that make sense? Hope it does. Anyways, the other very strong consistency is a Christ figure appears in all of the dreams. Now, Coverstone is very careful not to say Jesus appeared and told me X, Y, and Z, because I don't believe he wants to come across as that authoritative. So he knows what that would do, or what that's saying if he says this is Jesus. But I think inside himself, he believes it's Jesus. And the message sounds like Jesus. I believe it's Jesus. But he limits himself to calling it a Christ figure. This Christ figure appears in many of the dreams, most of them, with a very direct message, not just for him, but for all of us. Now, if he were a televangelist or somebody trying to get a following, wouldn't he just go ahead and say, Jesus appeared and said this, and you need to listen? Wouldn't he do that? I think he would, if that was his goal. But instead, he is evidencing the fear of God by not going that far, by indicating that he believes it's probably Jesus, but he doesn't want to say that so authoritatively for the rest of us. He just wants to present what was said and let us do with it what we want. That's the fruit of the Spirit. That is humility. That shows the fear of God. And frankly, how little fear of God would you have to intentionally create dreams and make up this Christ figure saying things over and over again? I mean, you would have to have no fear of God to do that. I mean, I would be afraid lightning would strike the first time I did it. So, yeah, that's evidence that he's not making these up. And the fact that the Christ figure appears in so many dreams with so many detailed, specific messages, not just for him, but for all of us, tells me these are probably from God. And I do believe that's probably Jesus speaking. I also will stop myself there and not say it's Jesus authoritatively. You watch, you listen, you decide if you recognize his voice or not, and if it matches what you understand from the Bible or not. So far, I've been very impressed with the consistency with Scripture, and I am operating under the belief that these are from God. And that's why I'm doing these interpretations, because I do think there's some symbols that are a little bit more ambiguous and harder for everybody to grasp. At least that's what I sense when people are asking me questions and commenting, and when I'm talking to others. So I'm trying to offer a service. I'm just trying to help you understand all of the symbols that are there. And as I said, I believe his dreams are from God, but that's up to this point, right? I haven't seen what he's going to post a month from now. So as long as I continue to sense God's power there and the consistency with the Bible, and I feel like I'm hearing the voice of Jesus, I will probably continue to do some of these interpretations and to listen to what he's dreaming about, because I think if God's speaking, we should be listening. That said, Coverstone's a man, I'm a man, we're all capable of errors, we're all capable of straying, and we should always remember that Jesus himself is the only one that we can trust fully, but I do think there's a lot of value in listening to what he's dreaming about. So that's it. That's what I had to say on this topic. From now on, when I do an interpretation video on his dreams, I'm just going to point back to this video and say, hey, go watch that, so I don't have to run through all of this again, okay? So thank you, and next I'm going to interpret the Lincoln dream for you. That's one of the older ones, because I think there's a important message there that a lot of people are missing. They think they understand, but until you get two key things, it doesn't necessarily make sense. Okay, so see you soon.